It's a new chapter for South Africa's transport sector, one that could redefine how we move, work and share the road. The signing of the National Land Transport Amendment Act officially recognizes e-hailing services as part of the public transport system, ending years of operating in a legal grey zone. The move has been hailed as a breakthrough, but also raises new questions about safety, compliance and coexistence between traditional taxis and ride-hailing platforms. Joining us to discuss what this means for drivers, passengers and for the industry at large is Tella Masakale, the spokesperson for the National E-Hailing Federation of South Africa. Tella, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this evening. So what would you say for the e-hailing industry the signing of this new legislation means, especially when it comes to the cooperation between yourselves and traditional taxis?
Thank you for the opportunity and welcome to your viewers. Well, this marks a historic milestone. For the first time, e-hailing is formally recognized as a legal mode of public transport in South Africa. It brings a long overdue legitimacy and clarity to a sector that has operated in gray area for years. It means inclusion in the broader public transport ecosystem and also opens the door for fair competition, safety oversight, and structured growth for our drivers, operators, and digital partners. It signals stability and progress.
You speak about inclusion and fair competition across the board. The regulations also come with a few rules that need to be adhered to, panic buttons for e-hailing drivers, strict identification in order for passengers to ensure that this really is a real driver, is not a fake driver, and also just operating areas. Do you foresee any challenges in ensuring that drivers adhere to some of these regulations?
We do. Well, if you remember, we've been, our provincial affiliates have been advocating for the recognition for several years, right? The key challenges included fragmented legislation, lack of representation in key policy discussions, right? And the resistance from established transport sectors. Now that we've been recognized, we don't see a challenge in us now being able to operate freely. Because we often face the perception that e-hailing was merely a tech startup service, not a legitimate transport mode. Through consistent engagement with the Department of Transport and the Parliament and regulatory bodies, we are now finally bridged that gap. So the challenge that we are now facing is merely the operating licenses being issued in a speedy time.
Do you think that the regulation will improve the working conditions of e-hailing drivers? Do you think they'd be protected a whole lot more now with these regulations in place?
Yes. It's because now drivers and operators can expect clear compliance requirements, including operating licenses, vehicle standards, and safety equipment, such as the in-vehicle panic buttons you mentioned earlier. And for the first time, the industry will have defined operating zones, regulated fare perimeters, and legal protections. Opens opportunities for local ownership and small business participation within the sector. So it allows our members to participate in a more safer environment.
And participating within that safer environment, like we mentioned earlier on, the restrictions in terms of the areas in which certain e-hailing drivers are able to operate in. Do you think this will then have any impact on the fares, on the standard pricing that consumers would be paying going forward?
Yes, the goal is to maintain affordability while also ensuring service and safety. So regulatory oversight helps prevent unfair pricing models that exploit drivers or confuse commuters like yourself. Passengers will benefit from safer, more reliable rides with standardized safety protocols, trained operators, and compliant vehicles. Ultimately, it enhances consumer trust and integrates e-hailing into a sustainable public transport mix.
And have the relationships between the National E-Hailing Association as well as Santaco improved over time for you to be able to find synergies going forward and so that we don't find ourselves back in a place where operators are at loggerheads?
We believe constructive collaboration is the way forward. Our stance is not competition, but coexistence. The transport ecosystem must evolve together. Meter taxis, minibus taxis, and e-hailing all serve different commuter needs. In fact, we are engaging with Santaco and meter taxi bodies to explore integrated digital platforms and co-branded transport initiatives that benefit all our drivers and passengers.
And any gaps in the current legislation that you feel need to still be addressed in order for us to improve services on both ends for commuters as well as for drivers?
Yes, indeed. We are still advocating for inclusion of key labor provisions to address the employment status of drivers, standardization of digital commission rates, and the creation of dedicated e-hailing regulatory fund to support local innovation and transformation rather. We also want government to fast-track integrated transport permits that allow e-hailing vehicles to operate seamlessly across provincial lines, amongst other issues that we've raised with the Transport Portfolio Committee.
All right. Tella, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this afternoon. We certainly do hope that those relations and the expanding of the e-hailing services within the transport services that currently exist in the country would do good not only for the economy, but of course for those consumers that would now have a choice in terms of what mode of transport they would choose to use. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. That was Tella Masakale, who is the spokesperson for the National E-Hailing Federation of South Africa.